Okay, and we are back with a fully filled out chapter 1 from 1 through 25, each statement being a list item inside of an ordered list. So now let's go to the end of the section, create a new section tag similar to before, give it an ID of ch2, then we go back up to our table of contents and use our multi-selector after the art_of_war.html $, and then give that a ch2 as well, so that the ID of the section and the chapter in our table of contents are linked together. Now, you might have come across that when you are pasting each line item, it gets a little bit tedious from the PDF over to the HTML document. So I want to show you a little bit of a shortcut that you can use using multi-cursor functionality in order to make the best of copy and pasting. So I'm going to add some spaces here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to add 5 spaces here, and then I'm going to go to the PDF of the Art of War in Chapter 2. And I'm going to go ahead and copy all of Chapter 2 in a new text file that I'm not going to save. This is just going to be a plain text file, and it's got about 20 points. So another way you can use brackets as multi-cursor functionality, and if you're using Visual Studio Code or Atom or one of the other text editors, this functionality is there in that too. For Visual Studio Code, you may have to hold down Alt instead of Command. For Sublime and Atom, the shortcut will be the same. So I'm holding down Command. If you're on a Windows computer, hold down Control, and make sure your cursor is at this position. Make sure you're not accidentally creating another cursor by your original cursor being over here or something like that. Make sure your cursor is in the initial position, then hold down the Command or Control key, and then highlight this first line. And then go ahead and highlight this second line. Make sure to go all the way until the end. Make sure not to highlight the third line. And then go ahead and highlight the third line while holding down the Command or Control key. And let's do this 5 times because we created 5 spaces in our original HTML document. And so let's do this 5 times. And now let's copy using the shortcut Command-C or Control-C, and then go back to our art_of_war.html. Now, similar to before, let's create 5 cursors, 2, 3, 4, 5, and let's create a list item inside each cursor and then press Enter. So now we have one list item here, another list item here, a third, fourth, and then fifth. So now I've created another 5 cursors, one inside each list item, and now we can just press Command-V or Control-V to paste the text. And now when I save and refresh the page, it comes up like before. One thing I did forget is to add a Chapter 2 heading. So underneath section ID of Chapter 2, let's create a heading of H3, Chapter 2, and this chapter is called Waging War. Now, back up, I just want to clean up the original document a little bit more. Oh, we'd actually used an H4, not an H3, so we're going to fix that in a second. I'd actually noticed that it's probably better to have the heading before the table of contents instead of after the table of contents. So I just cut out the heading and then pasted it right underneath the main tag instead. So now we have our heading underneath the main tag, and then after the table of contents is done, let's add a few more breaks, line breaks, just for better separation. So line break here, second line break, third line break. Now let's go down and change our heading for Chapter 2 to an H4 instead of an H3. Let's just get a little bit of extra practice with brackets as multi-select. This time I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more sections. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 list tags that we're going to create. And go back to the lines that we'd copied before. Now we're at line 6, line 7, line 8, and I'm holding down the Control or Command key this whole time. Line 9, line 10. And now I'll copy this, store it onto the clipboard of the computer using Command-C. Now I'm back in artofwar.html, and then I'm going to hold down the Command key again to create multiple cursors. If you're on Visual Studio Code, it's probably the Alt key instead of the Command key by default. So now I'll type LI and press Tab, and then press Enter. That will change the position of the cursor, so I'll need to re-add the multi-cursor to be inside each LI tag. And now I'll press Command and V to paste all 5 lines. Let's just go back to make sure this works properly. After saving and refreshing this page, now we can see the title is up top, table of contents, and then Chapter 1, Chapter 2. And let's test out the linking too. Chapter 2 takes me down to Chapter 2. Chapter 1 takes me down to Chapter 1. So the linking works, the chapters work, and now let's go ahead and continue. This time we're going to kick it up a notch. We're going to add 10 line breaks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8, 9, 10. So now we're going to add 10 lines. We'll go back to Untitled 3. We'll say 1, 2, 3. Here's where it gets tricky, because notice that 13 and 14 are combined into 1. I'm only looking at the lines here, the line number that brackets gives on the very left. I'm not looking at the number indicated by the book itself, because as we can see, the book is combining multiple ones, which we're not taking into account. We're just going to do one by one, and then if the book combines 2 bullet points, we're just going to call it 1 bullet point. So 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Here we went to the next page. So we're actually going to need to separate this break into 1 line. So back up to number 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we only had 9 more. So one of our line breaks is actually going to be empty. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we're going to create an LI and create those same cursors again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then paste. And that should create 19 line items for Chapter 2. And I'll just get started with Chapter 3, and I'll finish the rest of this book on my own, as should you. I'll just show you how to do a Chapter 3, give it an ID of CH3. I'll just get you started on Chapter 3, and then finish the rest on your own. And then I'll post the code, the finished code for artofwar.html on a GitHub page. So section ID equals CH3. Now let's go back up and link to Chapter 3. CH3 up here, CH3 right underneath it. And this chapter is called Attack by Stratagem. So let's create an H4. Chapter 3, Attack by Stratagem. Reference our Art of War. And then this one has about 18 bullet points. So we could just give 9 line breaks like before. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then create a list item for each one. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, LI. And then go back to our Untitled 3, delete this whole thing, and go back to the PDF and just paste all 18 lines. Watch out for the page breaks here. There is a page break in line 15, so let's check that one out. See how here it's 16 and 17? Instead of having number 15 be on line 16 and 17, we're just going to press delete here, have it all be on one line. And there's a second page break on bullet point 6. So let's go up to bullet point 6. We can see it's spread out into lines 6 and 7. So instead of spreading it out on line 6 and 7, just combine it into one line. This will make copying and pasting it easier. So let's go back up here. Make sure your cursor is at the very top. 1, 2, 3, and we went up to 9. So 4, 5. And again, I'm holding down the command key this whole time. Control if you're on Windows. 7, 8, and 9. So let's copy these and let's go back to the Art of War. Create our 9 cursors again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then paste. And now we can see chapter 3 comes up. Oh, wait, but I made a slight mistake. This should be inside an ordered list. So I'm going to highlight all these LIs, tab them, add a closing OL tag, and then add an opening OL tag up here. And now this should show up properly. Yep, there we go. The rest of the items in chapter 3 and the other chapters I'll leave you to do on your own. And then I'll post the finished code for the Art of War on GitHub and include the link in the course. But after you finish this project, this should make you an HTML master. Check this out. Clicking chapter 3 got us down to chapter 3. This table of contents with links makes the book very easy to navigate. We can go back to our books and then back to the Art of War. So although this is just HTML, we're barely using any CSS ever. I think we've used CSS maybe 4 times in this entire course. It's important to understand the concept of HTML, and that's why I wanted to separate out the HTML and CSS sections. So if you want to continue from here, check out the CSS and Bootstrap modules, and after you finish this project, you'll be a master at HTML, or mistress. Don't want to discriminate with gender here. So you will be very proficient with HTML after you finish this. A lot of it is just practice, so I do highly recommend you finish up the rest of the Art of War, organize it into a nice section. Again, it's only 13 chapters, very short book. It's also a good excuse to actually read the book as you're copying and pasting the various bullets. Many people have read this book 10 times and enjoy it every single time just to memorize it, because many of the points in this book are universal, and it's a great first project. So thanks for joining me so far, and we will continue together with CSS 3 in the next module. And congrats on getting this far.